Hello and welcome to the class today. Today we're going to do a really nice big project. We're going to be drawing some realistic hands. I'm really looking forward to the project. Like I say, it's a big one on a nice big sheet of paper. So we should be able to get lots of detail into this drawing. But having said that, it is going to take some time, so we do have to be patient with this one. So let me start off by showing you what the photograph looks like. And we'll plan it out from there. So I got the photo of Pixabay. Nice and dramatic, definitely just aching to be drawn. So I quite liked the detail and the texture that we found in the hands. That's why I decided we'll draw this guy on an A3 size as opposed to an A4 like we usually do. And that way, if I do this, we'll be able to get some more of that detail into the picture. Can you see that? Got this lovely skin texture in there, and the character in the hands, which you don't get as much when you're doing it on a small drawing like this. Alright, so first things first, you do now need to get this guy onto your drawing paper. So what I've done with that is I've printed it out on an inverted image. That way we've got basically the outlines, but without having to use all that black ink when printing it. So to transfer that, I'm just going to use a sheet of paper, which I've now basically just taken a pencil and scratched over there just to fill it up. And now this is going to become our transfer paper. And to make sure that I can lift this guy up and realign him again at any stage, what I've done is I've taken this sheet of paper and I'm going to just bring him down until and I'm holding my thumbs against the edge of the page. Let's go out a little bit further. Holding my thumbs against the edge of the page like that, you see? So now I know he's perfectly aligned with the bottom. Then I'm going to line him up with one of the sides. So in this case, I'm going to line him up with that side. So I'll move him across until he touches the edge, and he's stopping against my finger there, and he's stopping against my two thumbs over there. So that way now I know this guy is in one place. And if I take this away and I do it again, I stop it against my fingers and against the edge of the paper there with my finger like that. Now I've got this guy exactly lined up in the same spot. And that's going to allow me to check things. It's going to allow me to move this paper around and so on. So obviously this is now graphite on there. So you can't drag this over the paper. So I'm just going to gently lie that over there like that to give myself a little bit of a gap on the sides there. So that when I do now bring this guy here in and line him up at the bottom and the left hand side like that, he's not overlapping the page. And now you can use a pencil and just transfer your outlines. What I'm going to use is just this little gadget which I got with a sheet of transfer paper at some point. It's when I bought some dressmaker's carbon paper. Then I got this. So you do now need to make sure that you're not you're only drawing here where your carbon paper is. And all I'm going to sketch out are just the basic lines and some defining features. For example, can you see here you've got some really deep wrinkles. So I'm going to sketch them out just to give me a rough idea of where they are. And then obviously before you go too far, just stop, lift up your paper, lift up this, and make sure that it is actually transferring and you're not wasting your time. So just some of these major features, I'm going to just add them in here. Because what happens is these features help you get the shape and the shading right. Cool, I don't think we'll do that. Finger and that one. We'll move the paper so that that's all one go. So we'll just check this. And as we draw these little lines and stuff that we're adding in won't necessarily be in exactly the correct places, but it's nice to put them in. Like I said, it tells you where those little angles and shadings go. So to check myself, I'm going to do this. I just flip this paper backwards and forwards like that, just to make sure I've got all the little marks in that I'm looking for. So another way of doing this is to use a projector. That also works quite nice, because when you're working with trying to get a very realistic drawing, you got to work accurate. Your final drawing is only ever as good as your initial sketch. So if you get this skew and wrong, it's not going to look as good. No matter how well you shade it. And that's why with an accurate drawing like this, I'm always tracing, not sketching. So if you do want to learn how to do the sketching work, so that you don't, for other artworks that you don't need to work quite as accurate and you can be a little off, then I do have a course which you can go and take a look at. It is on the website. There's the link to the website. Okay, can you see how I'm marking all these little wrinkles and things inside the skin? They're giving me good information on what to draw where. Okay, I'm going to make sure my thing is all lined up again, my paper. Let's do this hand. So you'll see that some of these marks here are quite low contrast. And that's okay. Just estimate them as best as you can. You'll fine-tune them as we go along. And it is a high contrast drawing, this one. So we do have lots of dark. So with us now working on the negative, obviously all those darks are now really light. So that's why I say don't worry if you do find that you can't see everything because it's gone too light. That's what's in the end of the day going to be dark. So that's alright. You're not going to see there anyway. All this lovely texture. Get all that in. Show yourself where it belongs. Must say these hands certainly do have lots of texture, lots of character. I'm really looking forward to drawing all that character. I think there's lots of lessons for us in this drawing. It should be everything. Let's double check it. So what I'm also looking for is areas where there's very little information. Can you see there? Here, there's lots of little lines and things telling me where information is. But like there, then suddenly there's nothing. So I'm going to go put that back and I'm going to look in this area for information. Because I know it's there. It's just little hints and clues that are going to help you later on while you're drawing. Little dings, dashes, marks on the hands. That's going to allow you to get all those fabulous details in there. Alrighty, so that should be the end of that drawing. So we can take that away and there's our sketch. Alrighty, so for this drawing, right, I think let's go back in again. We've done with that. We don't need to see that outside of the paper anymore. You normally start from the back and you work your way forward. But in this case, it's a really dark background. So it doesn't help you put that in because you're just going to be drawing over all that graphite and just getting everything insanely dirty. So we're not going to do that. We'll draw the hands and then squeeze in and merge in this vignetting effect on the background when we're done. So I'm right-handed, so I'm going to start here on the left and I'll work my way towards the right. So we'll start there, we'll tackle that hand, we'll tackle that, and somewhere along the line we'll decide when to do the coins. What we may do though is just give ourselves some bit of an edging over there because we do now need to know where does that hand end, right? So we may start just adding some form of the outline in there just to get the silhouette right because this is white. So we can't draw this in because this needs to stay neat and clean, right? So we may just use like a template or a mask to get that in. So to get that mask, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my own one. So you'll see in your handouts, you'll have a printout that looks like this. So what you want to do is just get yourself a sheet of transparency. So this is just in some inkjet transparency paper. Take that and just print it out, and now line them up. And to make sure they stay aligned, you'll just take a piece of masking tape. It doesn't need to be the whole length. I'll stick it here onto the transparency like that, and I'm going to line these two guys up, and when they're aligned, all I'm going to do is just fold that over so that these two guys are now together when they can't move. So you can always double check yourself, but it's not critical. This is just a very random line which I just drew out on the computer. The whole idea here is just so that they're different, lots of different angles. So I'm going to cut this out now as smoothly as what I can. If you go off the line, like I'm doing there now, don't worry about it. It's not the actual shape itself that's important. It's just that you've got lots of continuous little curves like this. There we go. Okay, now we can get rid of this masking tape. I can turf that. So what you've essentially got now is just a mask that you can now put down at places. For example, if I want to mask this off over here, now I can put that and I'll find a place where my shape matches. And now I can mask and draw into the background while keeping this nice and clean. And then there's a place that's now much sharper edge. So I'll move it up to a place where I've got a little sharper edge here for myself, or like over here. And that's the way you're going to keep your going along with your mask at different angles and stuff. And you get that edging of yours nice and accurate while keeping the main drawing itself nice and clean. So I think that's what we'll do there with that. So to get that background, I'm going to use some graphite dust. So you can create your own graphite dust just by taking they call these a pencil crayon. I found out the other day. I always just called them a stick of graphite, but it's called a graphite crayon. And this is a 9B one. You can just use some sandpaper. Just sandpaper it until you got some nice dust. I just bought a whole bottle of graphite dust. And I'm going to put some down on this little sheet of paper. I'll work with that. So I bought a whole bottle of 9B graphite dust. It works awesome. And you'll take a makeup blending sponge. So let's see, where can we put our photo down? I think for now, let's put the photo down there in the corner. Then we'll just create ourselves a little bit of a silhouette along there, because it's at the top. So we're not going to be putting our hands over that or anything like that. Then we'll get some nice practice with this mask of ours. And because you're using a transparency, you can now obviously go and wash it afterwards when you're done. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this and I'm just tapping this makeup sponge of mine in there. So there's lots of graphite on there now, and I'll just tap it on the side here just to get rid of the worst, any excess dust like that. I can always add more graphite. Not always so easy to remove it again. And as I go along here, I just gradually turn this little template of mine to make sure that he stays on the line. Just going to rub that excess dust that's still lying around there, just rub it in just to get rid of it so that it's not lying loose on the page. Is this now all perfectly dark and the correct tonal value and stuff? No, not yet. All I'm trying to do is just get myself that silhouette. As quickly as possible. Alright, so I can see on this template of mine there's a little bit of a sharp corner there. So I'm just going to take my scissors and just round that off. Just to get it more continuous. And then if you get too much dust lying over here, just take your brush and just gently flick it away. Yeah, that's better now. I'm going to get a nice rounding over there. So you can see with this template you've got concave and convex curves. So that allows you to work in any direction like that. And then obviously you can use the edges for if you need a straight edge. And look how neat it works. And the best part is, because it's a transparency, you can now see through it. So you can also work like this with, if this area here was already sketched out, wouldn't be a problem. So I'll tell you what, that would have taken a lot longer if you didn't have this. Yeah, that should do the trick. That's good enough for now. So first things first, just get rid of all that excess dust. We don't want that lying on the drawing, because that's not just going to lie there and get underneath our hands and get everything else dirty. Then while I'm at it, I'm also just going to take my cloth and just give this guy a wipe off. And that way he stays clean. And what you can also do is, if you clean him, you can flip him around and use him the other way if that's convenient as well. Or if you want to make sure that you're always using the same side, then what you can do is maybe just put a piece of masking tape on the one side that you want up. Then you can see which side is the masking tape. Yeah, fabulous. Just like that, we've got ourselves a beautiful silhouette on the hand there. I think we can work this just around there as well. But because it's a vignette in that area, we can just use the sponge and just manually put that in there like that. I'll just gently fade him inwards like this. So if your cloth is, or if your sponge is now really full of graphite, you can either wipe it like this, or you can take a spare piece of paper, put it down and just smash this down against the paper. Can you see there? Look at all that graphite dust that's just coming out. All that excess dust. You can shake it off and get rid of it. And then of course you can also just test on your paper to see what kind of tonal value is going to lay down for you before you use it over there. And that's now sort of going to be my mission at this stage, is just to get some of that basic tonal value down over there. So let's now just get ourselves that angle over there. Just so we know where the hand ends. On the bottom area. Great. So when I'm working with something like this, I'm now overlaying the photo for you over here, but my photo is just above me like that. But I'll often also work like this. I'll put it down there. And if you want to do a good comparison, you want to work really accurate, then you'd print yourself out a one-to-one template. So that is now in your handouts. You can go and download those guys. Alrighty, so my initial mission is just going to be to get some tonal value there that we can erase out of or draw into. So I'm just going to get something there. Very light amounts. The lightest touch on the sponge as well. Super soft touch. Think of this stage as planning. So one way to do it, to make sure that you're in the right place, keep your finger in there, and then with your other hand do the drawing work. So I'm not going to try and do it left-handed, just so that you can see how I'm doing it. Hopefully I get it all at the right places. I think one thing you can call this is maybe like tonal plotting. You're just plotting out roughly where your tonal values need to be, the lighter ones and the darker ones and so on. Are they going to drift in the end of the day? Yeah, probably they're going to drift a little bit, but in general they're going to be at the right places. Okay, so can you see how I was just holding my finger on the drawing or on the reference photo, and then the drawing as well, and that gives you a good, it stops you from getting lost. Right, so I'm going to take that out because you're now looking at the overlay over there. Okay, so try and get your tonal values reasonably close. Don't have to be perfect, just reasonably close, in the ballpark. When you start a drawing like this, there's no tonal value on the paper whatsoever. So everything you put down looks dark. So as you go along, you see I'm just using that little tip over there to get that finer marking in over there. So everything you're putting down here now looks dark. But as you go along, gradually less and less paper is exposed. Then it's easier for you to judge these tonal values. And that's why I like to, as soon as possible, get down some tonal values, because that makes it easier for you later on, or as you go, to estimate your tonal values correctly. And getting them reasonably accurate now means less fiddling and adjusting later, because they're more accurate right off the bat. Nice little shadow in there between those fingers there. You're starting to see a hand? I am. Just a little bit of imagination. See an abstract hand happening there already. Nice. Gotta love using the sponge, eh? And what's also nice about using the sponge is we can now go and erase everything we've done. We can get all this back to white paper if we needed to. And because we do have this little point on there, we can work reasonably accurate. Especially when you're working on a larger drawing like this. Then it's definitely helping you get what appear to be really fine and accurate lines. No, that needs to be dark. I just don't want to lose that. The line on the edge of the finger there. That's too small. I'm not going to get in there with the sponge. Right, that's given us more than enough stuff that we can work into. So now I'm going to take my cloth. So it's just a piece of t-shirting material. And I'm going to rub it over my paper with a graphite on it. Just in this area. Let's bring that guy in. Just in this area over here. Not there where all the graphite dust is, just here. And it's picking up some of that loose graphite over there. Just a little bit of it. And we're just going to give all these white areas just a super light little coating. So that it's just off-white. That way we can erase still some details out of that. Alrighty, so I'm going to start with my kneaded eraser, and I'm just going to pinch him like this to give us a nice round edge over there. And now we'll start just dragging out some of these details. Before we continue, I want to briefly tell you about my real-time paint and draw along art classes on my website. For a very small amount, you can get access to over 400 paint and draw along tutorials where you pack out your art supplies and you follow along as I show and explain to you in step-by-step detail how to complete each project. There are classes in acrylic, oil, watercolor, pencil, soft pastel, and even lesser known mediums like pen and ink and scratchboarding. There's a link in the description below. Take a look. You'll be amazed at the awesome classes available there. Alrighty, let's continue from where we left off. Alrighty, let's go to there. So to protect my drawing, I'm just going to take a bit of tracing paper, lay that down on the drawing, and I'm just going to put my hand on that. That way I know I'm not smudging anything. Right, and I'm going to just keep adjusting this guy's shape so that he's going to give me all these little angles and things. Right, so there I can see I'm not getting any detail in there because it's just simply too light. So I'm going to smash my makeup sponge onto the paper to get rid of any excess graphite dust. And because I'm working just in this little area, I'm going to lay down essentially that dark in that area over there. And if you need to make this guy even just a sharp little tip for you to work from. I'm just dragging and tapping in some of this texture now. Dabs and taps. Paying close attention to the angles. Okay, let's move up to that area. Let's add some graphite down there that we can erase. That's a fine little area, so just a sharp little point. Yeah, it sort of comes down and forms a little valley over there, eh? Are all these little tidal values and stuff correct? No, not yet. But they're getting us started. Okay, so over here, can you see what happens? You've got those curves are following now the curvature of the finger. But this of mine is straight. So I don't want that, so I'm going to take this and just squeeze it in between my fingers like that. So now it gives me a curve, a rounding. Can you see there? That's the same as that. Now I can pick out all those little wrinkles. Just like that. Pretty cool, eh? Yeah, I'm not getting any detail while I'm erasing, which tells me I don't have enough. There's no graphite there to lift up. So I'm just gently tapping in some graphite over there. Make sure the angle of the curve on your eraser is correct. And just gently lift those guys out. Alrighty, so in this area, yeah, it's really, really light. So I'm going to just make a really blunt point. So I'm still going to erase in that direction because that still gives you little textures inside the skin. So just little dabs and taps. In other words, you're going to lift up 99.9% of the graphite over there. Just 1 or 2% is still going to stay behind. Okay, and now I'm going to make him a thin little chisel point again by squeezing him so that we can get the detail in over here. So check the directions, get them right. Here's a nice prominent little one over there. So I'll work him in. You can see it's all done with little dabs and taps. Okay, let's move on to say, yeah, let's carry on over there. Seeing as we're working at the top there now. In that area over there, there's just a little, like a little dab or a dash. So I'm going to round this guy off. And just put that little dot in where I see him, just by tapping multiple times. And once I've got that, now I'm going to drag it upwards. And that'll sort of fade it out. It does look a little bit too bright now, but that's fine. That's okay at this point. Everything here just needs to be more or less. If we can get stuff more or less, then we'll come back in and we'll do lots of fine-tuning on these things. Getting the marks in their places at this point is the most important bit that you're looking to do. Just getting these marks roughly where they belong. So here's some really deep little wrinkles over here. So I'm going to darken this up over here. It's not as dark as the wrinkles, but at least it's darker than what it was. Which means I'll have to do less shading with a pencil later, because shading with this is quicker than shading with a pencil. Yeah, it's got a few lines and wrinkles over there, right? So to judge where these things go, because you don't necessarily always able to see those little lines that you initially put in for yourself. Some you can still see, some you can't. Estimate, I can see here's the little lighter wrinkles. I'm estimating it along the length of the finger next to it. And trying to get it at a similar place. And if I can do that, eye for a way, then it will look accurate. There's just a little bit of a light area over there. Little highlight running up there next to the finger. And yes, some more of these little creases and things over here by the knuckle. Okay, this is too light, so let's darken that up. And then there where that finger bends over, this last little limb over there needs to go extra dark. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I can see it's a little bit lighter in this area over here. A little bit lighter over there. Then along here, there's just little marks and areas. Part of your skin texture and some wrinkles. Alright, so what a wrinkle does is he gets a highlight and he gets a shadow. Because what a wrinkle basically is let's just take this piece of paper and let's just wrinkle him up like that. So what you've got is a series of highlights and shadows. You see that? You've got a highlight and then a shadow, and then goes back to a highlight again and goes back to shadow, as those little wrinkles hump and bump like that. But now if you have a really sharp wrinkle like that, you see what happens. You get quite a dramatic change between the highlight and the shadow side. Whereas if it's more continuous like we have over here, it just sort of gradually goes from highlight to a shadow. So you can't always tell perfectly where that changes. Where if it's a sharp wrinkle, you definitely can. But in this case, a lot of them are like this, the opposite way around. So you get a distinct change like that between highlight and shadow. So like over here, we are now adding in some of those little highlights on the one side of the wrinkle. We'll come back in and add the shadow in on the other side of the wrinkle. As we go along. Okay, just a nice sharp little point for this area over here. Let's plot in these little wrinkles in the skin over there. So you can see I'm using that rounded edge there, and that makes sure I don't get too sharp edges on these guys. They just sort of almost little shadings themselves automatically, and that's what we're looking for. Just like that. Yeah, that's great. So there I wanted to just fade out a little bit more. So I'm just rounding off that tip over there. So I can just gently tap it on that edge over there. And that forms me a shading. Awesome. So that's 2 fingers roughly plotted in already. Not looking too bad, eh? Just for a start. Okay, let's get our tonal values in over here. Just in this area. Quite dark there where those 2 fingers meet. Can add a bit more tonal value here. Yeah, that's cool. Now we've got some stuff to erase into. And on this side, we can see if we can get a bit more of a shading happening over there. Okay, let's see, we've got a highlight. Running up along there, and then here there is a bit of lininess running this way. And there's also a bit of lininess running this way. So nice little fine chisel point. Just gently dragging in. Some of those textures over there. As you do, make sure you're getting those angles right. Really, really important. Alright, that over there we need to really darken up. So I'm going to see if I can get him a little bit darker with the sponge. Just to get us started on that. I'll just work here and try and get that, just that shape and the angle more accurate. And I see I've got something that must be a little bit of a something on the paper that's making the graphite really stick to that one little area over there. Can you see it's a really dark little mark that? So I'm going to take my my knife and just carefully just give it a little bit of a scratch over there just to see if that comes off. So no pressure whatsoever. I don't want to damage the paper. You did lighten ever so slightly. So let's take our eraser, roll him up into the finest little point that I can, just as big as that mark is. Tap over there, just to see what's happening. This doesn't happen often if you're using good paper, but it does occasionally happen. Yeah, it is slowly disappearing, so that's fine. I'm happy you will be able to disappear on me. If it wasn't going to disappear, then what you can do is just use your jelly roll pen. Put 1 or 2 dots over there, so then you've now essentially got yourself, yeah, it's just a little rough spot on there. I can feel now is there we go, it actually came off. A little bit of a rough fiber. That's all that was. Sorry, Billy. It was just a little rough fiber. And obviously the graphite was now sticking to it more than the others. Luckily, we're very lucky it's in a really dark area. Alright, let's continue over here with our little texturing. And plotting out these textures. Alrighty, let's get those and these guys to meet. So nice sharp chisel point, because we've got all these little fine textures and stuff. So keep squeezing it. Super sharp little point over there. And just essentially taps. So what I'm doing is I'm tapping it, and as I tap it, I'm going to just the lightest little flick like that. And just 2 or 3 guys, and then you shape yourself a new point. Because otherwise what happens is that it doesn't lift out anymore. And then what happens? You have to start pressing harder. And if you press hard, you lose all your detail. Awesome. So there's lots of texture over there. So some of them are going that way. And you've also got texture going in this direction. So there you can see it's now starting to give us that some of that skin texture that we're looking for. Alrighty, this area over here can go quite a bit darker. Okay, let's get this here to fade a little bit, so just light taps. And I'm just making sure that my sponge is clean, and going to give me just a very fine little blend on that. So otherwise it's going to go too far, then you have to try and bring him back again. Yeah, very gentle like that. Just tap, tap, tap. Alrighty, let's see. So over here we've got a lighter area. Seems to be in this vicinity. And there's that one really prominent little fold running over there. Okay, let's get some of these textures down into this dark area over here. So as before, just keep checking your different directions. So it doesn't seem like there's a lot of texture there, but there is still some. Okay, let's get these textures running down in here. So there's lots of little angle changes here, so be really careful. Almost like a little bit of a rainbow effect, because they go in this direction here, but then they go in that direction over there. Okay, getting these diagonal ones in. So I know sometimes you're going to put this in and these marks of yours are going to look way too bright because it's going to lift out too much. Don't worry about it. That's par for the course at this stage. At this stage, you're trying to get suggestions of detail in. But this is all still just plotting. Just figuring out where stuff is. Because that's the hard work. It's figuring out what goes where and what belongs where. And all these textures and details. Once you have their directions and stuff in and they're correct, then adjusting it really quick and easy. Really quick and easy. Alrighty, most of this can go darker over here. So can you see I'm just doing little patches at a time? Just little small manageable areas. Get the tonal value right. And then get in your details. Every time I'm making a mark, I'm adjusting the tip of my eraser to match the kind of mark it needs to make. The blunter the mark needs to be, the blunter my tip is, the finer, more liney the mark needs to be, the more chisel point I'm making my eraser. Simple as that, really. Okay, let's continue around that area for a while. So it's quite bright. I'm not going to use the sponge, I'll just use the cloth. Because there are some details here which we do want to lift out. When you stand back, obviously you're never going to see those details. But this is for, because we're drawing so super detailed, People are always going to want to come closer up to the drawing and take a look at how on earth did you get all this detail in here. So this fine detail here in these highlight areas, that's for those guys. That's where you're wowing them. And they're saying, oh my goodness, look at this. Even these finest little details over here. Even though these finest little details are actually just a few dabs and taps, but they don't know it. They don't need to know it. That's your artistic secret. Let's put that over there for now. Okay, so here's some very high dark contrasts over there. So I think for now we'll just sort of work around that. I'm just trying to get all these little wrinkles in that are over here. So the first mission is just making sure that you figured out where they are. Okay, so what I'm doing now is just finding those edges. Where's my fading away happening? And at this point you can use a pencil as well. But don't press hard. Don't press hard. Yeah, that's great. I think we're finding that edge there now. So we can get these real dark bits nice and dark. So I'm using a fair amount of graphite dust over there, on that far outside edge over there. Let me just go to there and you can see I'm trying to get that quite dark at this point. Quite dark. And you can see I'm using my finger inside the cloth. Because that's now just a little bit more accurate than the sponge. Alrighty, let's go back closer up again. So I'll keep using the sponge for now. So we've got quite a few little dark bits over here, those little wrinkles and things over there, like that. Little shadow happening over there, and just some quick little shading work over here. And I can just use the sponge to get a few little suggested wrinkles in this area over here, because it does now give you a smoother or a softer edge. Yeah, there we go. That finger's now slowly starting to curl in underneath there, eh? Great. So here, there's just a little bit of shading to do. So it's just roll that guy out so it is a rounded point like that. You can see very, very blunt. You can just tap. Very gently tap. And that softens all those little edges up over there. Now we can go back to chisel point because now we need to get those wrinkles and things back in there too. So a main wrinkle is this guy over here. So let's work him in. And then we've got some liney ones around and after that. Maybe we can add just a little bit more graphite there just to have something to lift out. There you go. See, now you can see what you're lifting out. Now there's contrast there. And you can see now that these guys that are lifting out, they're not, or these little wrinkles and stuff, they're not straight or anything. They do little wiggles and squiggles as they go along. And then as they go along here, they're less prominent, so they become more. So I'm flattening out that chisel point of mine. Okay, there we go. We're starting to get them to curl in nicely underneath there. Okay, let's get some more of these lines in over here. Constant little taps. Constant taps. Alrighty, as we get into this area over here, things are becoming quite low contrast, so you can see I'm not forming myself new chisel points anymore. I'm just letting those dirty chisel points lift out those tiny little bits that we have there. Because that's now basically, can you see it's even shiny, it's so full of graphite, so it can only lift out the lightest little bit in that area over there. So I'm going to just go it wide for a short while. So it's just more of the same taps. I just want to do this area over here that's very close to the edge of the screen with the other view. I'm just working on getting those little textures and things in. Okay, and I can see them going in this direction over here as well. And by going in these opposite directions, that's when you're getting those almost like a sweat gland effect. So here it's almost forming little bows like that. And that's fine, just trust the process. If you see them, they're forming little lines like this, put those lines in. That's the way it's forming, so that's the way it's got to look. You've got to have those little guys going in opposite directions, because that's how you form those that sweat gland effect. Alrighty. Yeah, we're definitely starting to see a hand there, eh? And an old one at that. And that's exactly what we want. So that's about as far as we can go with lifting out at this stage. Our next step in the process is going to be getting the darker shadowy bits sorted, and that'll bring all this that we've done now tied all nicely together. And then after that, obviously, we'll come back in and just do fine tuning, maybe with a little bit more of the eraser. So for now, I think I'm going to leave it at this. You continue along, get yours to the same point, and then in the next class we'll continue. Yeah, so there we go. We'll leave it at that for today. Lots of little detail work that we've got ourselves in the hand already. So I'm really excited about that. Adding those darks in the next class is going to be, wow, really, really awesome. So good luck with yours. I'll see you next time.